Forcible entry is an aspect of firefighting that every one of us needs to be familiar with. For the ladder companies, it's part of their job. But engine companies, too, are finding that more frequently they need to be familiar with the ins and outs of forcible entry. When detailed to a ladder company, they usually end up as part of the inside team. In many instances, an engine will find itself acting as a ladder company when none are available. With this in mind, let's take a look at some of the basics of forcible entry. And remember, whether it happens once in your career or 1,000 times, at some point you will be the man at the door, and all eyes will be upon you to get the locks off and the door open. Okay, you're at the fire building. Now you have to gain entry for the engine, make your search, and vent. What this tape will show you is how to use force to accomplish these goals in residential and commercial buildings. There are times when the through-the-lock method is preferred, but these will be covered in a later tape. What do you do first? Size up, because size up will tell you how to attack the door. Taking a moment to see what kind of a door you're dealing with will save you both time and effort. Don't be afraid to talk it up among the forcible entry team to come up with the best plan of action, especially on doors that are uncommon. The amount of force used will be determined by many factors. Consider if it's a fire or an emergency. For food on the stove or water leaks, naturally use the least damaging means of gaining entry. There are some questions you must immediately ask yourself the moment you confront a door. What type of door is it? How does the door open? What type of locking devices are securing this door? Let's take a look at a few doors. Wooden doors are commonly found throughout the city in private dwellings and occasionally in tenements. A calamine door is constructed of wood, covered with metal, and can be found in brownstones as well as old and new law tenements. Metal doors are found everywhere. They have hollow or filled door frames. Tempered glass doors are generally found in commercial occupancies. They can withstand considerable punishment. Their weak points are where the glass meets the frame in the corners. They shatter into little fragments when broken, sometimes with explosive force, so keep those eye shields down. Glass and aluminum doors are sometimes made with plate glass. Plate glass will not crystallize when broken, as tempered glass does. Shards of broken glass falling from these doors could cause a serious injury, so always exercise extra caution when encountering this type of door. After removing the glass, make sure you take out the push or crossbar. Many members have been hung up on the crossbar when entering or exiting the building. Next, look at how the door is hung. Does it swing outward or open inward? Is the knob on the left or the right? These observations must be made to orient you to the proper position and method of attack. Finally, how many and what kind of locks are keeping this door closed? Let's take a look at some of the locks commonly used today. The mortise lock is designed and manufactured to fit into a cavity in the edge of the door. The rim lock or surface lock is made to fit on the inside surface of the door. The cylinder extends through the door and the keyhole is visible from the outside. The common key in the knob lock is used extensively in office buildings and private dwellings. This lock has a short latch with a throw of a ½ inch or less. The tubular lock can best be described as a cross between the mortise lock and the knob lock. These locks are easily recognized by their cylinders, which protrude a ½ inch or more from the door. A locking device that is not easily recognized from the outside is the sliding deadbolt. It can be mounted in such a position to project the bolt up or down or into either side of the door frame. A variation of this is the bar. This is basically a piece of wood or steel held in place by brackets which extends across both sides of the door frame. Padlocks are portable or detachable locking devices having sliding and pivoting shackles that pass through a staple. The staple is usually attached to a door or gate. On many commercial occupancies, you may find 6 or more padlocks that need to be removed to enter and vent the building. Here are the tools used in this tape to perform basic forcible entry. Now your main attack tools will be the Halligan and the axe. And by the way, this is the beveled side of the Halligan, and this is the concave side. Now your other manual tools will include the 10-pound maul, the bolt cutters, the duckbill lock breaker, and as you'll see later in the tape, a 36-inch pipe wrench. Now your power tools will include the rabbit tool, the forcible entry saw with aluminum oxide blade, and the MAP gas torch cutter. Here's your typical apartment door. Now the cardinal rule is try the doorknob first. If forcible entry is required, start your size up immediately. Determine if the door opens outward or swings inward. If you see hinges on the outside, you know it opens outward. Now on this door, we see no hinges, so we know it opens inward. Also, it's a metal door, so adjust the bevel side of the fork end of the Halligan accordingly. The general rule is, if the door is wood, place the beveled side of the fork against the door. And if the door is metal, place the beveled side of the fork against the jamb. All right, let's force the door.
Your first step is to try the doorknob. The fork end is placed between the locks, and under the direction of the ironsman, the can man strikes the Halligan with short, chopping blows with the emphasis on accuracy and coordination. While doing this, gradually bring the tool to a point perpendicular to the door. This will prevent the fork from being driven into the jamb. The man wielding the axe must be aware that the ironsman will be maneuvering the Halligan, so his blows must be carefully placed, and he must listen for instruction from the man holding the tool.
On inward opening doors, the use of the rabbit tool has made life considerably easier. By using hydraulic pressure, tremendous amounts of force can be exerted against the door.
The door might be flush with the jamb. Sometimes simply leaning on the door will give you enough room to insert the jaws. If not, use a Halligan to make the initial purchase. Of course, the jaws must be in a closed position. Set the lever to pressure and operate the pump. Then it's a matter of inserting the jaws between the door and the jamb, midway between the knob and lock, or right on the lock. Hold the jaws with a gloved hand, and the door should be open in 3 to 4 pumps of the handle. Don't let the door pop open. Hold the door closed, not locked, until entry is ready to be made. Keep the reservoir level by pumping the handle on the ground. If you must take it off the ground, keep the hose pointing down. A word of caution when using the rabbit tool on doors that have locks protected by shields. Do not stand in front of the lock while the operation is in progress. The bolts can become dangerous projectiles. Now let's look at how to force an outward swinging door. If it's a flush fitting door and you use the adze end, place it above or below the lock and drive it into the space between the door and the jamb. The tool is then pulled toward the jamb to force the door. When using the fork end, place the concave side of the fork against the door. When the tool has spread the door as far as possible, force the adze end away from the door, slipping the bolt from its keeper as the door is pulled outward. Caution: beware of forcing outward opening doors in smoke or darkness. They may lead to an elevator shaft. Up to now, we've discussed inward and outward opening doors that have been secured by basic mortise and rim locks. As the locks become more sophisticated and the doors and jambs get more substantial, greater difficulty is encountered forcing these doors. The most difficult lock you're likely to encounter is the multi-lock.
Since the through the lock method usually jams this lock, conventional forcible entry is called for. Now the multi-lock has the keyhole in the center of the door, or off center, that has 4 rods running from it, up, across, down, and over. Your first step is to check to see if the lock's engaged. You do that with a piece of cardboard or a shove tool. Okay, there's the bar. We know the lock is engaged. Now your next step is to pick a spot on the door to make a cut with your forcible entry saw so that you can get your arm in and release the locks. On this door we chose here, where we won't cut the bars, and it's within reach of all 3 locks. Make your cut through the door, then reach in, open the door. If after you make your cut, you find there's a key lock on the inside of the multi-lock, then make another cut, this time cutting a square around the lock, severing all the bars, work the bars out, and then open the door. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have a power saw, then use your 10-pound maul or your rabbit tool. Start by attacking the top bars first, then the side bar, then the bottom bar. And use a golf swing with the maul on the bottom bar, you'll get the most power. Oh, and by the way, check your wall first. Breaching the wall might be the easiest way of all.
The police brace lock and Fox double bar lock are 2 locks you may encounter in residential and commercial buildings. Although they can be forced conventionally, the through the lock method is preferred. Knowing an alternate means of conventional forcible entry is important, especially if your initial attempt is not successful. A good alternative is forcing the door on the hinge side. Take the maul or the back of the axe and strike the solid part of the door adjacent to where the upper hinge is located. After the upper hinge is freed, use the same method on the lower hinge. But be aware, when you take a door from the hinge side, you lose the integrity of the door once it is open. If you have a heavy body of fire behind the door, it will soon be in the hall. Another way to attack the hinge side of the door is to use the axe and the halligan. Start by placing the adze end between the door and the jamb and pulling down. This will spread the door to give you the room to work and may even expose some hinge so you know where to start. You then drive the hook end of the tool deep into the jamb and then pull down in an effort to rip the hinge from the door and the frame. If the door tears or only some of the screws pull out, then reverse the tool and with the axe and halligan attack the hinge. Work together in your efforts and take a moment to see what you are dealing with. Get a steady pace, again starting with the top and working your way down. If the man using the axe gets tired, then switch positions. Accidents happen much more frequently when members are tired or muscles are worked to a point of fatigue. If what you are doing does not appear to be working, change it. Be flexible in your approach. Find a weak point and attack the door there.
Pull back.
One of the greatest challenges of forcible entry is the roll-down gate. These gates are used extensively across the city in commercial occupancies. Each gate is secured by at least 2 locks, and anytime these occupancies are involved in a fire during non-business hours, these gates will have to be opened. Let's take a moment now and get a close-up look at some of the padlocks commonly in use today. There are 3 basic padlocks that you will encounter. The first is the regular padlock, which has a shackle of less than 1/4 inch and is not hardened. They usually can be cut with a bolt cutter and are rarely used on roll-down gates. Next are heavy-duty padlocks, which have a shackle of 1/4 inch or more and are hardened. Some have heel and toe locking. This prevents you from opening the lock by cutting only one side. With these locks, both sides of the shackle must be cut. The next lock you're likely to encounter is the American Series 2000 or the hockey puck lock. This lock can be very intimidating if you're unfamiliar with it. The primary tool will be either the partner saw equipped with the aluminum oxide blades or the torch. Remember, when using the forcible entry saw, start at a low RPM, then rev up. Hold padlock steady with vice grips. Cut both toe and heel of lock. When cutting the American Series 2000 lock, you will notice no shackle on the lock and also no staple to attack. Cut through the lock 2/3 up from the keyway, cutting it in 2 pieces. When using a torch on the Series 2000 padlock, go 2/3 up the keyway and hold steady in that position until you burn through the pin. Then strike with the back of an axe or maul, or use a halligan to pop it off. Okay, the locks are off, but the gate is still closed. Your next move is to pull any pins or retract any sliding bolts. Many times, unnecessary delays are encountered because a member intent on cutting locks forgot to pull the pin. The locks are off, the pins and bolts are clear, but the gate still does not open. This is because gates come in 3 basic varieties: manual, mechanical, and electrically operated lifting systems. If the door is manually operated, it will slide right up.
You'll know these doors by the lift handles on the bottom and the absence of any extra housing at drum level. The mechanically operated door uses a chain hoist assembly. The gear and chain mechanism are located in a housing at the top of the door alongside of the drum. The chain hangs down next to the door and is held in place by an angle iron with locks that must be removed. Once removed, open the panel, remove the chain, and raise the gate. Last, we have the electrically operated door. Usually a large housing readily identifies this type of door. All electrically operated doors are equipped with an auxiliary chain hoist. Your first step is to remove the housing or housing faceplate that covers the machinery and then engage the chain hoist mechanism. Then raise the door as if it were mechanically operated. An alternate means is to cut the bicycle chain that runs around the sprocket wheel with the bolt cutters. Now you have a manually operated door and can lift it by hand. In a critical situation where time is of the essence, use your forcible entry saw to cut a triangle in the curtain with the apex at the top. Remember to keep the saw perpendicular to the angle of the cut to prevent binding. After the cut is completed, simply remove the slats, sliding them out from both sides. But be aware when removing slats. Some doors are spring-loaded and may retract suddenly. There may be times when you will be faced with the task of removing padlocks when no power tools are available. Using the duckbill along with a maul or an axe can be your best approach. While one member inserts the duckbill in the lock, the other strikes it so that the lateral force is exerted against the shackle from the inside out. Another good point to keep in mind is to always remember to look beyond the lock. Many times people will put a $50 lock on a $2 chain or hasp. By simply cutting the staple of the hasp with bolt cutters or tearing the hasp out with a Halligan, you can achieve your goal without ever touching the lock. The same is true for fences or doors secured with a chain and a case-hardened lock. Go after the chain with the bolt cutters, and again, you reach your objective by the easiest means. In any forcible entry situation, always use your size up to find the weak link in the system. This will save you both time and effort in your operation. While traveling around the city to research this project, we came across some interesting and innovative ways of forcing locks and doors. Some of this information can save you valuable time and effort, so we'd like to share it with you. And as with all the procedures in this tape, always use full protective gear in any operation, and use extra care when dealing with glass doors or windows. From Harlem, ladder companies have had a lot of success taking inward opening doors by using the adze end of the Halligan to make their initial attack. From Midtown comes a good tip on forcing glass doors. Many times dirt can fill the receiver on the floor, preventing the deadbolt on the lock from fully dropping. By inserting the adze end of the Halligan under the door, lifting and then pushing, The door may open without having to break anything. This can also work in doors that have a short throw bolt, even if the receiver is clean. An idea that seems to be popular in both the Bronx and Brooklyn is using the pipe wrench on the American 2000 or hockey puck lock. All you need is a 3-foot pipe wrench and a little leverage. In Queens and Staten Island, where surface-mounted locks are popular, the through-the-lock method can mean the point of a Halligan and an axe. Place the point of the tool directly on the cylinder and drive the lock off. This can be very effective on surface locks protected with shields.
Lastly, we have the shove tool. You may have noticed we used it earlier in the tape to check the bottom of the multi-lock door. It's a great tool, it's simple to make, and it's easy to carry. Some members have made them from aluminum flashing, but 18-gauge steel is ideal. It can be useful for slipping the lock on outward opening doors that have a simple spring latch. They're also good when used in offices, private dwellings, or in fire towers where there's no re-entry without a key. The procedures shown in this video can only be mastered with practice and experience. You can practice some of these techniques only at fires, but experience is all around you in the firehouse. Tap into that knowledge so that when it's your turn at the door, you all know what to do.